Welcome. This is David Boles, Human Meme. Today's topic, aching actor archetypes. Can there be anything worse in the world than being stuck in a box from which you cannot escape? A box in which you are defined as to who you are not and what you are not. And that box is always compressing you and suffocating you, and you cannot even dare to even fight against the definition of the angles and corners and folds of your confinement. Or you'll risk losing everything and be undefined and numeric and boxless. That very terror, that very never-ending nightmare, is what many television actors in the 1960s and 70s had to deal with for the rest of their professional acting careers. And before we boo-hoo them for being spoiled rich brats who are both famous and wealthy, please know that a majority of early television actors were caught in the conundrum of being famous and quite poor. And their lot was all by purposeful business design, and not by their own want, reason, or hand. Unlike the celebrities of today, older stars were paid once for their TV work, and then they were done in profit participation. They did not get paid for reruns. They did not have profit participation or royalties or any other form of payment. That's why we see so many of those actors showing up at autograph shows today. And that only serves to degrade their previous television work in other sad ways, like always being their character in real life, the character that they played on television. Just think of the skipper from Gilligan's Island and Ellie Mae Clampett from the Beverly Hillbillies, for two examples. Believe me, there is nothing worse than being famous and having no money. I, too, have many friends who are in that uncomfortable actor spot. You can hide your lack of money, but you can never hide your face. And so you, the misbegotten actor, are ripe for manipulation and getting ripped off, looking for cash and a place to hide. And more early television stars ended up in the poorhouse and in the dumpster than they ever did finding a square on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But what's worse than just being famous with no money is not being able to continue to work, because some in the entertainment industry are too uncreative, a nominative absolute, to cast you in any light other than the one you already shown. That means you're stuck playing an archetype. The casting industry will not let you try on another role, unless it is the dead last opposite of what you are and were. So, if you want to work, you end up playing against your famous archetype. And that rarely works out well for the actor, because fans of the actor are always disappointed in the dramatic revelation of the underside of your original character trope. Now, Ron Howard may be the exception. He was a big star on several television shows, and then he wised up, got smart, stopped acting, and became a movie producer and director instead. Here are some actors who were not Ron Howard fortunate. Robert Reed. Do you remember him as the father on the Brady Bunch? Robert Reed was a classically trained actor, and he took on the Brady Bunch job as father-in-chief just to make his rent. He didn't think the show would last, and when it did, he was miserable. Robert Reed hated the role and wanted to do serious work instead of fake child counseling on weekly TV. After the Brady Bunch ended, Robert Reed began acting up against his beloved father character archetype by playing killers and bad people on episodic television guest star roles. And he unfortunately and oddly usually wore a mustache and had a chemically induced salt and pepper curly-haired afro. And Robert Reed's evil characters never played well on TV, because you immediately knew, as the fan, by his look, that he was not going to be the lovable dad as you knew him on television. And you respected him as that father on the Brady Bunch. And yes, Robert Reed did all the subsequent Brady Bunch reunions on television. But what choice did he have? He had no career other than that role, really. Robert Reed wanted money and fame, and Father Brady paid the bills. Robert Reed died a broken and disappointed man as an actor. Edward Platt is another interesting character actor who was boxed in as the chief on the Get Smart television show. Platt had a wildly creative career on the live stage and on TV and episodic television before he was cast in his Get Smart role. Edward Platt was on the original Perry Mason television show and Wagon Train in 1960. But in the end, Edward Platt is now best remembered as the bumbling but deep-voiced boss of Agents 99 and 86. That is his legacy. Lucille Ball pretty much played herself on television, and while she owned all of her TV shows, playing against type never really worked out for her. So she was always the wacky redhead who could never do right because her wrongs were so funny. Richard Dawson is another interesting career test case. He starred in Hogan's Heroes on CBS television for 6 seasons, and then Richard Dawson became a panel regular on the Match Game television show in the late 70s and early 80s. And then Richard Dawson found explosive fame and fortune as the original host of Family Feud. In the end, Richard Dawson became known mostly for kissing women contestants on his television show. Such a brilliant talent and mind who, in the end, preferred to smooch his way into the television history archive, instead of continuing to hard-earn his place in television lore with concentrated depth of purpose and humor. And now, what about Patrick Stewart, Leonard Nimoy, William Shatner, Kate Mulgrew, George Takei, all classically trained, excellent actors. But once they stepped foot in Star Trek and pulled on a uniform, and then took their place in the Starship Enterprise, their careers were sealed. Nothing else mattered. They were merely who others wished them to be, and never what they hoped to become. And so we are still left to wonder about what happens to the classically trained actor who gives up their training for money and fleeting fame on television. It used to be okay for the stage actor to leave the live stage for a career in the movies, but television was never done. The boob tube was just inappropriate. But now television money is large, and not as many movies are being made, and so burned-out movie stars are now starring in their own weekly TV shows. And yet, that flat-screen life is still a come-down from on high. Because the next rung down on the television ladder is local cable access television. Now, we can't rightly continue this investigative conversation without addressing the idea of the character actor, who makes a good living by playing various guest starring roles on television, without actually being a permanent cast member. Character actors are the people you immediately recognize on television, because you've seen them so many times before. But you don't know their name. The life of the character actor is fame without recognition and money without attribution. Character actors have the half-life of a series star, and the average length of a standard character actor's career is about 7 years. And the reason for the character actor whiplash work life, seeing them on every show and then they disappear forever, has more to do with laziness than talent. And it's the laziness of the casting director, who has a pool of friends and actors, and that pool is rarely replenished. And so we, the television watcher, get the same people who work over and over again, and then, when the casting director retires or gets replaced, the character actors go with them, flat-bottomed out on the streets. It's all over. And all of that is why, especially in the 1970s American episodic television network shows, you will see the same guest star actor on The Incredible Hulk, and then next week on Wonder Woman, and then on Bonanza, and then The Rockford Files, and Columbo, and then maybe on The Wild Wild West. And so on. Because it was always easier to keep casting the same actor than to always be on the lookout for newer, better, and fresher talent. Now, all of that is different today. The character actor as a career has sort of faded out, because now talent, good talent, raw talent is everywhere, on YouTube and social media and on campus in professional training programs. And keeping fresh faces alive on TV is as simple as twisting your wrist to click on a contact link online. I had a good friend who, about 20 years ago, was in every commercial on television. You could not escape him. He had that bland Nebraska boy look, the Yaterman look, the everyman look, the blonde, blue-eyed, doughy body boy look that was both pleasing and non-threatening. And he worked a lot. Was my friend working so much because he was talented? Yes, but no. Or maybe not really. Yes, he was super talented and classically trained at the undergraduate and graduate level. But none of that matters when it comes to success. There are lots and lots of those types out there in Los Angeles with similar training histories and who never professionally work a day in their lives. Or was my friend working so much because when he arrived in California, fresh-faced and young and talented, he volunteered to work for free in a small Los Angeles casting director's office a few days a week. And he volunteered so he could surreptitiously be the first one to the fax machine in the morning, so he could get the hottest tips on who was casting what commercial for national, local television commercial campaigns. Yes, sometimes to be successful in the crowded acting circus, you are required to find your way around everyone else in line, and you must learn how to sharpen your ability to cut. Yes, cut, even if it arrives on the bleeding edge of a piece of paper from a fax machine. Today, my friend is older and doesn't quite work as much. Getting cut off from the fax machine is precisely how one places a career in jeopardy from the start. Because it's impossible to surreptitiously line up for a first peek at the email inbox of the casting director. Time and technology have always conspired against the living actor's livelihood. And so, as one, we ache and pity the great, trained actors who are stuck in roles they never wanted or imagined, just because they wanted to honor who they were born to be and what they intended to leave behind as their mark on the world. Some of us leave behind dust, others scrabble ashes. Some of us leave beloved memories for others to share in endless afternoon television reruns, while others of us still continue to die a slow death by being left behind, suffering 1,000 slashes of paper cuts from a fax machine. Thank you for listening. Be a human meme.